Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 378. Last night, I was getting some food, and the drive-thru was just packed with cars, maybe 15, 16 cars deep. And I'm waiting my turn in line, and I see this person, and there's like this power box that's a little bit, I don't know, maybe 5 feet away from the ordering menu. And I see like this shape like hunched over by the power box. So I'm trying to make out what the shape is, and I get a little closer, and it's a human. So I'm waiting to get closer to my turn to order, right? And I, pull up a little bit closer, and I start to make out the form. And this person was sitting next to this power box, and they couldn't get any deeper into the hood of their beaten and worn jacket if they tried. And I know that look, that exact look, in fact, because I've been there myself. I've been so cold in the mountains before that I've tried to literally climb into the clothes that I was wearing a second time. And it was cold here in Las Vegas last night. I mean, for our standards, in the 30s. So all of these cars just, went through the drive-thru, doing their business. And once I got a little bit closer and I was, at the menu, and I looked over and I was able to read the sign, this person's sign basically stated that due to the pandemic and the shutdowns that followed, that this person had become homeless. So I'm saying to myself, we're a few days out from Christmas. None of these people in this line are even going to buy this person a coffee or a hamburger or something. So I order some chicken nuggets for myself, and then I decide to spend the rest of the change on ordering food for this lady and a couple of coffees. So I get all my stuff together, pull out of the drive-thru, park my car, put her stuff in a bag for her, and I walk over towards her, and I say to her, "Ma'am, is everything okay? I wanted to bring you some food. I don't want to startle you." And this face looks at me from inside of this hood, this just beaten down, broken, worn face of somebody who is just on the brink, folks. I mean, literally on the brink. And then this face just cracks into this huge smile. And she was so thankful that somebody took a little bit of time out of their day to just, stop by and talk to her and, see if she was all right. So I give her the food, I give her the coffee, a couple of bucks, and we start talking about her situation and how she ended up in the dire straits that she's in. She's not a drug addict. She's not somebody who has an alcohol problem, according to her anyway, and she certainly didn't seem to be inebriated when her and I were talking. It was simply somebody who has fallen through the cracks. The unforgotten people. And they're everywhere in Las Vegas, and I'm sure around America. And this is the kind of stuff that I talk about when I'm screaming and yelling about our elected officials. They don't give a damn. The homelessness problem in America it's a serious issue right now. And these people don't care about nobody. So we have to take it upon ourselves to do as much good as we can do, personally, and affect as many people as we can personally. Because if we're waiting for these people to come and save the day, if we're waiting for these people to come and make sure that ladies like the one I was talking to last night don't end up in those sort of circumstances, then we're just going to have the same results that we see right now playing out before our eyes in every major city in America. And it was disheartening to see how many people just ignored this lady like she didn't exist, like she wasn't even human, right? And we're not talking about, you're not going through the Ruth Chris Steakhouse drive-thru here, for Lord's sake. We're talking about McDonald's. They have a $1 menu. How about a coffee? It's freezing out. So after me and this lady chop it up for a little bit, she tells me about her circumstances. I go to my car, and I had a hoodie in my car and some gloves. I gave her the hoodie, the gloves, a couple more bucks, and there's nothing else I could do at that point, right? But what I hoped was that maybe just that one little bit of kindness, right? That little bit of kindness shown to somebody who is basically just being ignored by the rest of the world would help to make their day just a little bit better, right? It sounds kind of corny, I know. And as I get older, I'm becoming a lot more, a lot more soft, I guess. A lot less wrapped up in myself. And a lot more wrapped up in my fellow humans around me. And I don't know if that just comes with age and becoming more mature, or if it is a direct result of what my girlfriend and I went through with her and her cancer. My whole entire life view changed when she was diagnosed and she was sick. And my compassion level for other human beings skyrocketed. Because up until that point, I had been fairly insulated from anything like that, right? Life-shattering types of situations. So I was so caught up in my own pursuits of professional goals, attaining wealth, and trying to have all the nice things that I possibly could have. But things really changed for me when my girlfriend was sick, and I just see that as, the days have moved forward since that point. And a situation like the one last night, I don't know what it was, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't grab some food for her and, try and, at the very least, offer what little comfort that I could. The good thing is, after I was done talking to her and hopped back into my car, as I was getting ready to pull away, I saw another person park their car, hop out with a bag and a bundle of stuff, and walk over to her as well. So, I guess the moral of the story is, if you find yourself in a position of even just a little bit of financial security right now, you got a leg up on a lot of people. And if you can help out in even just a little way, such as buying somebody a hamburger or a coffee or whatever it is, then you know what, you're doing a good thing. And if we all pay it forward throughout this Christmas season, if all of us just try and, help out as much as possible whenever we can and wherever we can, then I think that it will go a long way, right? Because the government isn't going to save us. It's up to us to save ourselves and each other whenever possible. Now, don't get it twisted. I understand that the scope of this problem is so huge that it's just a drop in the bucket, right? Nobody's saying that, you'll build that Rome will be built in a day. But I think, acts of kindness, they have a way of rubbing off on other people. And I saw that last night after I did what I did and, saw the other person doing the same thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, during this holiday season and moving forward after this incredibly hard year that we have all suffered, I think it would be a good idea for us to try and be kind to each other. Again, I know that sounds cheesy, right? And for everybody who knows me in real life, they're probably scratching their heads saying, what the hell happened to this guy? But we're on a different playing field right now, folks. Things have really changed. And it's quite obvious to me that we need to be kinder to each other, because the world is a rough enough place without us being kind, right? If we're being mean to each other all the time and we're at each other's throats and we're looking down at other people because of their circumstances, it's just going to always be the same thing, right? So I know for me moving forward, I'm going to try and be more kind in my life, no matter the situation. And it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it, because I've been known to tell people to get effed. But I'm going to try to not be like that moving forward into the next year and try and be a bit more of a kinder soul, I guess you would say, right? More Sun Tzu instead of Machiavelli. But the point I'm trying to make here on the little rant I'm on here, this little opening monologue, is if you're in a place of financial security, this Christmas especially, and you can help somebody out, or, a charity out, or the guy dressed as Santa, I think it's a good idea to be generous this year if you can be, because there's a lot of people, folks, who are in really bad shape. There are a lot of people who could really use the help. All right, enough of my little monologue there about my experience last night, and we'll dive into the meat and potatoes of what you're all here for. Now, Luc Brunel has been swooped up. We all know that. But he has now been formally charged in France, and he is in serious jeopardy here, folks. I think that Luc Brunel is really in criminal jeopardy here, and he is going to end up facing penalties and repercussions for his behavior. This article today is from the Financial Times, and the headline, Jeffrey Epstein associate held in France over rape allegation. Former modeling agency boss Luc Brunel detained at Paris airport en route to Senegal. This article was authored by Victor Mallet. So, we know all of the basics of this already, right? We know he was picked up at the airport on his way to Senegal. We know that Senegal does not have an extradition treaty with France. And we know that the authorities said he was under investigation. Well, now it's been made formal. And this article today is going to add a little bit more context to what we already know. Luc Brunel, a former French model agency boss, an associate of the late sex offender, pedophile, and financier Jeffrey Epstein, has been detained and placed under formal investigation for rape of a minor over 15 and sexual harassment, the Paris prosecutor Remy Heitz announced on Saturday. So, again, we knew that he was detained, right? And we had some idea of what was going on with his detention. But today we're getting a full accounting from the Paris prosecutor here, Remy Heitz. And it does not look good for Luc Brunel, folks. Not at all. Now, the extradition situation is a big sticking point. I don't know what sort of wrangling can occur behind the scenes, and I don't even know if Macron and France would be receptive of it. Do they want to set that precedent? I don't know, right? This is speculation on my part when I talk about this extradition situation, because I'm not in the room. I don't have a direct line to Macron or to anyone else involved. All I could do is look at the data that we know from the past, in the present, and using that, we can try and forecast the future. So, I don't really feel too strongly when it comes to France extraditing this man to America. I don't think it's going to happen. Does that mean it won't happen? No, that's not the case. It could. It definitely could. But I have one of those gut feelings. The 74-year-old Mr. Brunel was also named as an interested witness in a case of aggravated human trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation, the prosecutor said. So, again, this guy is facing a litany of charges here, and the prosecutors are definitely looking at least like they're going to be going after him in an aggressive manner. Whereas I was pretty critical of what was going on in France, from my peanut gallery seat, of course. And I was very clear also that I didn't know all of the ins and outs and the nuances of how they investigate cases in France. But I was wondering what the hell was going on over there, considering all of the girls that have come forward and said that they got abused in France. So I figured that the investigation would be pretty aggressive, but we didn't see any signs of that really. Well, here you are. Have a little crow, Bobby. Do you like ketchup on it? So I'm glad to eat crow, folks. Believe me, that in situations like this, I am certainly glad to be wrong. I want the prosecutors to be aggressive, as aggressive as possible within the boundaries of the law, right? And with all of these charges being thrown at Brunel, it sure looks like the prosecutors are going to take an aggressive stance here. Mr. Brunel was stopped at Charles de Gaulle Airport on his way to Senegal on Wednesday. He is suspected of having committed rape, sexual aggression, and sexual harassment on different survivors, underage and adult, and in particular, of having organized the transport and housing of young girls or young women for Jeffrey Epstein, the French statement added. So obviously we have a conspiracy case here, right? You mean to tell me that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel weren't at it together? They weren't intimately involved in this shit together? Do we have to take a look at those pictures of them together in the Virgin Islands again? Come on, folks. This needs to be wrapped in to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. No doubt about it in my mind. This is all the same road. All of it's tied, all of it's connected, and when you talk about conspiracy again, you cannot have a conspiracy of one. So with all of this talk of conspiracy being thrown around, we're going to have to start seeing some co-conspirators. Lawyers representing Mr. Brunel cannot be immediately contacted at the weekend. But when the latest allegations against him emerged in October 2019, they said he firmly contested the accusations and was not on the run. And he was supposed to sue people, I thought. What happened to that? A lot of big talk about suing people until the time comes, until you know that discovery phase is going to cook your shit. So these people will run their mouths about suing people into oblivion, but when the chips are down, you see how it all turns out. All of these people end up settling out of court. None of them want to go to trial. None of them want to get hammered. And none of them want discovery. Allegations that Mr. Brunel mistreated young models have been in the public domain for more than 30 years. The Epstein case in the U.S., as well as a hardening in France of previously lenient attitudes to sexual abuse and sex between adult men and young girls again, brought the accusations to the fore. And that's, look, I love to hear this. Any place who hardens rules when it comes to predators like Jeffrey Epstein or Jean-Luc Brunel, they're definitely going to get a nod from me. Because there is no place for this kind of shit. 50, 60-year-old men assaulting 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls? Hell no. Gross. All of these nasty-ass, gross sons of bitches, the Brunels, the Nygaards, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, there's no place for them on this planet. These people all need to be prosecuted to the fullest length of the law, the fullest extent of the law, and then they all need to be buried underneath the prisons. And, by the way, chemically castrated if found guilty. Epstein died in jail last year in what was ruled to be a suicide after being arrested on federal charges of trafficking underage girls, allegedly. Another of Epstein's former associates, Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of the late British newspaper tycoon Robert Maxwell, was arrested in July on charges that she helped him sexually abuse underage girls. So we got the same story unfolding here with Jean-Luc Brunel, right? The same exact story. So this is a huge conspiracy. It spans continents, just like I've been saying from the jump. The legacy media is out there talking about, this is a conspiracy theory. When I said months ago, this has moved on from a conspiracy theory fully into the range of criminal conspiracy. And that's exactly what we find ourselves with here, folks. We have an arrest in France. We have an arrest in America. I'm sure that there are other investigations going on, obviously, in England. We have Denise George's investigation in the United States Virgin Islands. And if some of these other countries weren't so corrupt, unfortunately, I'm sure that there would be investigations there as well. Dutch woman Thizia Hoosman, whose accusation that she was drugged and raped by Mr. Brunel in the early 1990s is covered by a statute of limitations, described his arrest as amazing news. And definitely a shout out to Thizia. She definitely deserved this day, just like Virginia, just like all of the other girls that Jean-Luc Brunel allegedly helped abuse. So I'm sure it was a very fine day to wake up to this news for Thizia, for Virginia, and for the rest of the ladies who were abused by this disgusting son of a bitch. So, every now and then we have something that breaks in this case that is certainly a cause for celebration. And whenever one of these key associates is swooped up and fitted for bracelets and a federally administered jumpsuit, yeah, that's a cause for celebration, folks. I'm weeping with joy. 11 women testified against him after me, but all those deeds are prescribed by time limits. I hope the police have other files from more recent victims, and I'm sure they do. They wouldn't have swooped him up if the statute of limitations was passed in all of these cases. There's obviously new girls who were abused by this guy. You don't stop doing this shit. It's like a serial killer. You don't just stop killing people. The only way you stop is if you get caught or if you die. And this guy is not going to stop, right? In my opinion, anyway, he is not going to stop. So he was probably still abusing girls, probably still abusing these models. And now when all of the avalanche of allegations start coming out, the news starts breaking around the world about his relationship with Epstein, his relationship with Maxwell, then these girls who were abused by him start to see that it's okay to come forward. Start to see that they don't have to hide in the shadows anymore, that Brunel and Epstein and Maxwell can no longer hurt them. So they come forward, and new allegations are laid, a new investigation is sprung, and we find ourselves with Jean-Luc Brunel sitting in a jail cell. Merry Christmas. In October last year, French prosecutors did receive a complaint sufficiently recent not to fall under the statute of limitations from a woman whom they did not identify, and I'm sure it's going to be more. Where there's smoke, there's fire. These people don't operate like that, right? Whoa, just one girl, never happened again. It's not a mistake, right? You didn't spend too much money gambling. You didn't get too drunk and lose your keys. You sexually assaulted somebody, another human being, a living human being with dreams and goals and plans, family that loves her, friends that love her, and you thought that you could just do whatever you wanted. You thought that because you were so powerful, you had so much money, that whatever you wanted to do was going to be okay. And for decades it was. But guess what? Not any longer. And the narrative has been snatched. And now the survivors are on the offensive. France launched its own inquiry into Epstein in August 2019, shortly after the release of a 2016 deposition in which one of his survivors, Virginia Roberts, said Miss Maxwell directed her to have sex with at least half a dozen prominent men, including Mr. Brunel, who headed the agency's Karen Models and MC Squared. Epstein kept a luxury apartment on Avenue Foch in central Paris. And we also know that him and Harvey, old bitch-ass, gross-ass Harvey Weinstein, had a bit of a kerfluffle at this Paris apartment. So how many girls were really abused in France by Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel? How many girls that we don't even know about were abused by these sick bastards? And for how many decades did the authorities look the other way? It's a sad state of affairs when we have to wait decades for there to be justice in a case such as this. But even though it has taken this long, we now find ourselves in a place where true justice might be meted out finally. These people might finally face repercussions for their behavior. Ghislaine's in jail. Epstein's dead. Jean-Luc Brunel is in jail. My question is, when are the Core 4 and Indike and Khan going to get the same treatment? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the show and who has helped support the show and to keep the lights on around these parts, I appreciate you all very much. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow morning with the morning update. I hope that all of you have a fantastic Saturday. As for me, I plan on sitting on the couch and overdosing on sports.